they used to report, each state reported cases with quite a bit of detail on a county-by-county basis, and they were reporting on a daily basis. That went to a weekly basis, and then the CDC recently announced that they were no longer going to be doing the weekly, and they weren't going to be doing it on a county-by-county because there were too many cases, and they basically have been overwhelmed. So they can't do the lab confirmed. The cases I cited for Argentina actually comes from the government website in Argentina. It's written in Spanish, but it is, it's easily translated, and the numbers are quite real. And they just came out with an announcement yesterday. It's dated August 5th, and their numbers have tended to be low. And the evidence that their numbers are low is that in addition to the national site, there are state sites or provincial sites in Argentina, and those numbers tend to be quite a bit higher. I mean, most of the deaths in Argentina are in the Buenos Aires region, and there's another province, Santa Fe, which is right next to it, a town, Rosario, and those are where most of the deaths, at least, have been reported. And so they came out with a report yesterday, and the report yesterday did list the 337 cases. It broke them down by each of the provinces, and then they noted that they are lagging, and they've been lagging the whole time. I mean, Argentina is one of the places on the map that we actually include suspect because they basically don't become an official state, an official case until they're tested by the official state lab. So even if there's a private lab that has confirmed the case, they won't count it until they confirm it independently. And there's so many cases that they're just very backlogged. So the 337 were lab-confirmed cases, and the 400 were cases that essentially have the same features. The flu, even though it's flu season in the Southern Hemisphere now, and so that's one of the reasons there's so much attention being played to the Southern Hemisphere because it's cold and it's flu season, and is kind of a preview of what's going to happen in the Northern Hemisphere starting in the fall. And they, have 1,000, 1,000 people that have died, and most of them are young adults. They're between the ages of 20 and 45, just like 1918. And about
looking at your map, Doctor, is there any evidence this is affecting people who racially have more melanin in their skin, or does this appear that it?
No. If you go and look at the map, you can see that right now most of the cases are in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's in South America, it's in Australia, and it's in New Zealand, and now South Africa is starting to catch up.
Is that because it's their flu season right now?
That's right. So they're basically 6 months off from us. So they are really, at the height of they're entering the height of their flu season. But what's interesting and what's the concern is that in places like Argentina, almost all of the flu is swine flu. So it basically has outcompeted seasonal flu. Normally at this time of the year, there'll be an H1N1 human, an H3N2 human, an influenza B. All of those are being displaced by the swine flu.
Okay, sir, what do you...
99%.
Sure, Doctor, that's a big number. Doctor, what then do you project as a tracker? What do you project the death rate is going to be like this flu season in the Western countries, A, and B, when do you see it peaking and then dissipating?
Okay, well, the history from 1918 as a guide is it really started in the fall as far as changing over and becoming lethal. And therefore, the CDC has acknowledged that the number of cases in the United States is well over 1 million. And it really started at the end of the flu season. When flu really got going in the U.S., it was really in April and May, and flu season is pretty much over. The flu season pretty much peaks in February in the United States, and by April it's just about gone, and it's totally gone in May. In the United States, it's the same thing. 99% of any flu that's happening right now is the swine flu. And the virus is evolving. So there's a little bit of a clue by what's going on in South America and in Australia, and you can look at the website for the flu trackers and see what kind of numbers are showing up. And we have a daily plot of the deaths, and the daily plot is a little bit uneven because like I say, the states and the governments aren't really reporting daily; they're reporting weekly. So sometimes you get some spikes, but the biggest number of deaths in a day was yesterday. And if you look at the map, it's over 80. So over 80 people either died or reported as died on yesterday, and that's the highest that it's been so far. We're going to change the map over, the graph a little bit. Right now it's daily, and it doesn't look as dramatic as it is because the numbers have been high for about a month now. We only show a month. But when we switch it over to weekly, you'll be able to see that there were very few deaths back in May and June, and then it started to go up in July, and now it's higher than ever. So,
how many deaths in the United States again?
I've got it in front of me for the world. The fatalities worldwide are 1727 right now. The United States, I think we've got around 350. So there's 350 that have been either confirmed by lab tests. Well, they've all been confirmed by lab tests. But
less than 2,000 worldwide. I mean, if they're in their peak season down in the other hemisphere and regular flu kills 30-plus thousand a year in the U.S. alone, this sounds like an incredibly weak flu.
No, it's an evolving flu. It just jumped, okay?
But don't flus, I mean, according to other doctors, but you're an expert, so I mean, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just asking. A lot of other virologists and doctors we've talked to say that flus tend to mutate into something less lethal on average.
They're mostly talking about seasonal flu. And I mean, this virus is already fairly efficiently transmitted. So it is jump species from swine to human.
And it's an airborne transmission.
Yes. I mean, that's why there are all these outbreaks at schools and at summer camps now. It's easily transmitted. And the virus, because it is now adapting to humans, so it's been in swine. It just got into humans, a few months ago. And as it gets into humans, it can interact with human flu. And human flu is more efficient at transmitting and growing, and so this virus can...
So you're saying it can mutate with the regular flu?
Right. It can mutate with the regular flu and adapt to humans.
Let me ask you this. You saw the story about Baxter and the European countries mixing it in. And then I want you to comment on that. But then we've also seen reports, and we've had doctors on and read the reports, that they're saying the testing of the vaccine, the headline was live attenuated. I don't, maybe explain that.
Yeah.
But the issue is some are saying it could mutate easily in the body and incubate something new or merge with other seasonal flus.
Right. Well, here's a couple different issues because they're kind of taking bits and pieces and not really putting them together very well. As far as Baxter is concerned, Baxter was an error in the lab. It was not a vaccine that was being certified to go into humans. It was actually a vector. So Baxter.
Yeah, but why was it mislabeled? This super powerful bird flu is then mixed in.
Right. It was the contaminant. That's why I say that's what the accident is. It was supposed to be a vector for H1N1 seasonal flu. So it was supposed to be. It was sold to a company in Europe that then distributed to.
And then they accidentally lied to homeless people and injected them, and they died. A lot of accidents happening here. Well, that was another company with the dead homeless with the bird flu.
That was a trial, and I don't know the details about that one as much as I know about Baxter. But Baxter was an experimental vector that got contaminated at Baxter. I mean, Baxter does make a pandemic H5N1 vaccine, and I would say somewhere along the lines at the plant, it happened. It wasn't supposed to be there. That nobody knew it was there until they actually injected the ferrets. The ferrets died. and essentially they basically made corrections, so that's not going to happen again. But it wasn't in the vaccine that was being prepared for humans. This was an experimental lab version, which isn't going to have as many controls as the version that actually goes into people. And it got contaminated, and they found out when it went into the ferrets. As far as the vaccines themselves are concerned, vaccines have already shipped. The vaccine for the pandemic that is already shipped by several companies is really the same as the seasonal flu. It is not a live vaccine. It's not an attenuated vaccine. It's a killed vaccine. So this virus is killed. There's nothing alive in the vaccine, and it's just like